Baba, welcome to this week's edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, a Ghanaian broadcaster, writer, journalist, and entrepreneur. And in this week's edition of Ghana in Focus, it's part 2, analysing the legacy of President Nana Akufo-Addo. And so if you remember in part 1, last week, we analysed the legacy because there's a lot to talk about. So we looked about issues to do with the economy, jobs, corruption, and agriculture. And in this week's edition of Ghanaian Focus Part 2, looking at the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo, we'll be looking at things like housing, healthcare, small-scale mining, the debt restructuring program, and also the Dumsot power outages. And also we'll be telling you what the best thing that Nana Addo did in his tenure as president. All right, so before we get into the show, just let you know that if you like what you hear, please share it to your friends, family, social media networks. We are on YouTube, so please subscribe to Ghana Africa in Focus on YouTube. Again, we want to get 200 subscribers by the end of the year, so please subscribe to that if you haven't already. And we also on Spotify, where we want to get at least 800 followers by the end of the year. So far, we've got 500. So again, please go on Spotify. Look out for Ghana African Focus on Spotify. Click the follow button. And that means you'll be notified by Spotify every time I upload a new podcast. All right. So before we get into the issue, again, if you want to do business in Ghana, buy property, buy land, look at different opportunities, we do offer a consulting service whereby we can tailor make a package to suit your needs. So we charge $30 an hour for an hour consultation, or $20 for half an hour briefing. So if you want to book your session with myself, I've got more than 10 years experience of doing business in Ghana. I've got land, I've got property, I've got financial instruments in Ghana. Then please drop me an email, and I'll leave you my email address in the notes to the show, and we can book you in for your consultation appointment. All right, and if you'd like to donate to the show, you can. So, to help us with our costs and also help us continue to bring some fantastic content for you from Ghana and from Africa, you can donate as little as $3 a month. That could help us with our costs. All right, so you just go on the website, Ghana African Focus website, and click on the donate button. Or again, in the funnels to the show, there's a link they can click to donate to the Ghana Africa in Focus podcast. Okay, let's get straight into the podcast, analysing the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo, part 2. And so we're touching on some issues that for me, are, you could say, indicative of the tenure of Nana Akufo-Addo being president of Ghana. So like I said, so as I mentioned last week, touch upon the economy, jobs, the governance of the country under Akufo-Addo, agriculture, and also corruption. And so in part 2, we're going to look at housing, healthcare, Ghanaian or illegal mining, the debt exchange program, both internal and external, and also Dumsot, which is the power outages. And I'll also tell you, from my perspective, the best thing that Nana Akufo-Addo did in his 8 years of presidency. All right, so we look at housing. So again, under Nana Akufo-Addo, and I mentioned this also in the State of the Union address that the president gave earlier in the year, he's done nothing about housing in Ghana. Right now, there's a housing shortage in Ghana of about between 4 and 5 million housing units. Yeah, there are no, despite the government's attempts, there have been no real concerted effort to build affordable homes in Ghana. Yeah, when we mean affordable homes, this term in Ghana is very, very deceptive, because what is affordable to one may not be affordable to someone else. and what is affordable to that person may not be affordable to somebody else. And so for me, when I'm talking about affordable, I'm talking about a price that the majority of Ghanaians can afford. Particulars who are working for the government or working in the private sector. And for me, an affordable property in Ghana for the not necessarily average Ghanaian, but you could say the average middle class, because there's a lot of Ghanaians who, don't even earn $100 a month. So $100 a month for current exchange rates is either $1,500 a month or £1,800 a month. Many Ghanaians, there's a lot of them who don't even earn, $100, equivalent of $100 a month or £100 a month. Definitely not. And so, when we talk about affordable housing, for me, I'm looking about Ghanaians who work in the public sector, like for the governments and other agencies, private sector, i.e. your banks, your telecommunication companies, your estate developers, some of the multinational companies that are in Ghana. Those are the people that I'm talking about who are working, 5 days a week for these agencies. That's what I mean by average Ghanaian. I don't mean about, the taxi driver or, the cho-cho driver or even the market woman, some of whom their take-home pay is very, 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 very little. When you factor in things like rent, transportation, lighting, food and other utilities that they have to fork out. So I'm talking I'm talking basically about the workers. So for me, what an affordable property would be for the average lower middle class Ghanaian is something in the region of about 25,000 US dollars. Yeah, because a government worker can afford that on a mortgage. A Ghanaian who works for a media company or a bank or a telecommunications company or one of those multinational companies that operate in Ghana, those kind of workers, should be able to afford, a city equivalent of $25,000, property, and that is on a mortgage. That's not cash outright, because many Ghanaians, again, of that ilk, haven't got 25,000 US dollars to buy cash property. No, right? So, that is the person that I'm talking about, that I would reasonably deem as affordable for many working middle to lower class Ghanaians. And so, under this administration, housing for the majority of Ghanaians has been a no-no. All the property you see built in Ghana, particularly residential properties, yeah, most of them in Accra are way, 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 way priced out average Ghanaian. You're talking starting point, 90 to 100,000 US dollars. How many Ghanaians who are working for a bank or for a government or for a telecommunications company can afford to buy, even on a mortgage, a 90 to 100,000 US dollar property, let alone some of the properties that you see in Accra, East Legon, Laboni, Cantonments, Tema, Kaswa, probably Kaswa on the low side, Oyayifa, Oyibi, even going to Adenta, going to the Ebu, the Hills. A lot of these properties are minimum, right? 120,000. That's to the apartment. Not even talking about a 2-bedroom house. And so most of these properties in Ghana that have been built are out of the reach of Ghanaians, the majority of Ghanaians. The only people that are buying these properties, right? As like I said before, some of these politicians who are stealing state monies and are washing that money out by buying real estate. And as well as Ghanaians living in the US or in the UK or parts of Europe, that can afford to buy property, and that's even at the low end, the 150,000, 200,000 US dollars, because Again, there's properties in Ghana that are $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And even the Ghanaians in the UK cannot afford to buy that. So what I'm saying is that housing in Ghana is a major, major, major issue. And unfortunately, under this government, there's been no attempt to address the housing shortage by, building affordable houses en masse, not just in Accra, but in all of the country, in Kumasi, in Tema, in Takoradi, in Sunyani, in Tamale, etc., whereby the older Ghanaian worker can have a place to call their own. Nothing has been done about that. And so many Ghanaians, live in this, cast into situation by renting, and then if they've got a bit of money, saved up, they can buy a plot of land and then build small. But as I told you about 2 weeks ago, the cost of building materials in Ghana has rocketed in the last 2 years. So even now, there's people who are wanting to build in Ghana are now going to find it hard, such as is the astronomical cost of building materials in the last 2 years. Cement alone has doubled in Ghana in the last 2 years, making it even more difficult for ordinary lower middle class Ghanaians to actually build a property. And so if government had really got its eye on the ball in terms of housing, yeah, and trying to address the issue, there'll be more housing developments, in the last 7 years than what we've seen, And as I mentioned before, in terms of housing, yeah, because we've got this crazy thing about house being priced in dollars, again, many Ghanaians even can't afford to get a mortgage because, believe it or not, mortgages in Ghana are in US dollars. That is so stupid. That is so dumb that we live in Ghana, yeah, but yet mortgages are priced in US dollars. Again, squeezing a lot of Ghanaians, even working in, government or other sectors of the economy are being squeezed out. And so if government had took an active interest in trying to, support and develop the lower income real estate sector, not just, give it, not just, make it economic viable for the higher end, then Ghana will not be in a situation where it is today, whereby there's a massive housing deficit and a massive issue with housing that will come back to Ghana if nothing is addressed about it. And for me, this is one of the worst points of Akufo-Addo governance, that he did not address the acute housing situation, not just in Accra, but all over Ghana. Now we move on to healthcare. The government had a program called Agenda 111. So Agenda 111, from my understanding, is that they would build more than 111 small, medium-sized hospitals up and down the country. Because again, healthcare is a very, very serious issue in Ghana. Unfortunately, because of the current economic crisis that Ghana is in, the government was not able to, get the monies together in order to implement this agenda of 111 and building those small to medium-sized hospitals that is badly needed in Ghana. I mean, there's one hospital that is being built right now. That's the La Polyclinic in Labadi. That was not done by the government, and that is now, as I gather, being built across $65 million. Aside from that, I don't see any other major hospital being built. At least in the Mohammed's time, the last NDC government, at least from what I know, there are 3 major hospitals that were built, by the last NDC government, and that was the Rich Hospital, which was a former colonial hospital that was originally built by the British, but Mahama actually modernized that hospital. Also, there's the Bank of Ghana Hospital, which was a public-private initiative between the government of Ghana and the Bank of Ghana. And in actual fact, it's ironic that a lot of these ministers now, who are in office now, during the COVID, that's where they got treatment in the Bank of Ghana hospital at Cantonments in Accra. So had Muhammad not had the foresight to enter partnership with the Bank of Ghana and build a hospital, it would have left a lot of these Ghanaian MPs probably even dead or having to go to outside to treat themselves for COVID. And so the failure of Nana Akufo-Addo to actually build hospitals is anathema on the whole presidency of the man. And healthcare is not just about building hospitals or clinics, right? It's also about providing affordable healthcare. Many Ghanaians cannot afford basic healthcare, because under the so-called National Insurance Health Scheme or National Insurance, the NHIS, the National Insurance Health Scheme, many Ghanaians still have to pay for their medical care because a lot of the illnesses like cancer, like kidney dialysis or kidney diseases, right, that is not covered by the National Insurance Scheme. And as we've seen recently, there's been a massive rise in Ghanaians with kidney disease. That's because of their lifestyle. And again, I'll come on to that bit of health in a minute. But we've seen a massive, increase in Ghanaians with kidney disease. And because of lack of investment into hospitals, there's not even a decent kidney dialysis machine. And the one that is in Accra, you've only got one kidney dialysis machine for about 10,000 patients. That's the ratio of that particular machine, telling you how bad healthcare delivery is in Ghana. And so many people have died in Ghana because of the government's inability to buy simple kidney dialysis machine that will be to treat Ghanaians. Because many Ghanaians cannot afford the 1,200, I even hear it's going to 4,000 Ghana cedis a time to use the kidney dialysis machine that they've got in Accra. And so, lack of investment in our healthcare system in Ghana under this president leads not to be desired. Again, on the back of this, I did a podcast early in the year or last year about Ghana's nurses leaving Ghana in droves. This is a direct consequence of the lack of investment that Nana Akufo-Addo, as president of Ghana, has made in the healthcare sector of Ghana. Because a lot of nurses now in Ghana, don't feel that government is taking their course seriously. So the working conditions that many Ghanaians have to work in, the lack of good pay, lack of opportunity, and the lack of proper investment is the reason why many Ghanaians are leaving Ghana for the US, UK, Canada, Australia. And we've seen in the last 2 years alone, more than 5,000 nurses have left Ghana in search of greener pastures because this government under Nana Akufo-Addo has not invested in the healthcare system, as well as not giving doctors and nurses in Ghana a decent salary, as well as decent working conditions. Again, to add to the nurses, many Ghanaian doctors have left Ghana also in the last couple of years. So this tells you the state of healthcare in Ghana. And then onto that, the COVID pandemic exposed Ghana. If it was not for the funding that Ghana got from the World Bank, from the World Health Organization, Ghana would have struggled to deal with COVID. Because Ghana has not invested, and it's not just Akufo-Addo. Governments after Achampong was in the 70s, all the governments after Achampong have failed to invest in adequate health care provision, which is why Ghana would have been exposed during COVID, and even was exposed to the degree because Ghana did not have the equipment and other facilities to deal with the COVID. In actual fact, even the vaccine, Ghana had to procure those from outside in order to give to citizens. Showing you that Ghana is not really ready for healthcare, let alone the next pandemic that could hit Ghana maybe in the next 20 or 30 years. So the failure of Nana Akufo-Addo government to actually invest in healthcare is a very, very, very bad legacy that he and his party we have to live with. Now, in terms of healthcare, Ghanaians themselves need to look after their health because, Ghanaians have adopted, you could say the Western style diet. So many Ghanaians now are not eating, particularly youth. They don't want to eat their traditional foods. They more want to eat, chicken and chips. KFC is big in Ghana. Burger King is big in particular in Accra. Pizza now is becoming massive. There's a famous, pizza chain that is doing well, particularly in Accra and Kumasi, right? And Tema as well, right? Because Ghanaians now are not seeking to eat their traditional foods, whether it's akbele, whether it's banku, okra stew, red, whether it's a blum, whether it's fufu. Ghanaians are eating too much junk food, particularly for youth. And added to this, right, a lot of Ghanaians do not do exercise, i.e. go to a gym 5 days a week and work out, or go for a run and that kind of thing, to keep yourself healthy and active. Many Ghanaians are not doing this. This is why you could say, even added on to this, right, that healthcare in Ghana is in a crisis because many Ghanaians are dying very young, 35, 40, 45, 50. Yeah, there was in the program documentary the other day on one of Ghana's main channels, Joy News, and they were saying that there's a crisis in Ghana with non-communicable diseases, NCDs. Yeah, so the failure of this government, because they and their ministers, they don't use healthcare in Ghana. When they get sick, they go to US, London, Germany, Australia to treat themselves. So a lot of the government ministers don't care about healthcare provision in Ghana because they don't use it because they go outside to seek medical treatment. And so the failure of the Nana Akufo-Addo to invest in Ghana's healthcare is a very, very bad legacy on his behalf. Now, we move on to, small-scale illegal mining that we call galamsey in the local Akan language. Galamsey, for me, has been a major failure of this government to deal with. If you recall, I did a podcast last year about why galamsey, i.e. small-scale illegal mining, is a threat to Ghana's existence. Yeah, it's always been there, even in my grandfather's time. People were doing small-scale mining. Yeah, but they were not using poison damage chemicals that they are now, and they're not using heavy machinery that is digging into the ground and spoiling the soil or the nature of the soil. And so, because of this galamsey and the failure of the government to act, Ghana's water bodies, half of them are now being polluted and poisoned because of the dangerous toxic chemicals like mercury, like lead, like aluminium that are used to extract the gold by these small-scale illegal miners, many of whom have not got the right licenses to mine, and we know many of whom, right, are government aficionados. There's a famous case in particular in the Asante area that the chairman of the NPP in the Asante region is deeply engaged in galamsey. This is a claim that is denied, but sources in the know that the Asante NPP chairman is deeply involved in galamsey. And the president made it a point that he was prepared to sacrifice his presidency, just to have one term in Ghana, if it meant him dealing with the menace of illegal small-scale mining, galamsey. And so, if President Akufo-Addo was prepared to put his presidency on the line in order to deal with galamsey, what happened? Where was the commitment? Where was the political will to tackle galamsey head on? In actual fact, under Akufo-Addo's tenure rather, galamsey has thrived to, like I said, the extent that now most of the main water bodies in Ghana are polluted. Again, Joy FM, under the award-winning Erastus Asaridonko, did a groundbreaking documentary talking about the effects of illegal small-scale mining Ghana is having on Ghana. So he went to many of the mining communities, in Wassa, in the Western region, Manson, Asante region in Ghana, and also Eastern region, parts of Eastern region, which are the epicenters of this illegal mining. He saw that, the water bodies in Ghana are being polluted. And he did a sample of the water. Some of the water, you couldn't even, you wouldn't even drink it to your pet, let alone drink it yourself. Because the water is turned from a silver color, which is a natural color, to dark brown, even black. And even the Ghana Water Company is now having problems where it said that because of the pollution caused by these chemicals in the water, it's not even having enough money to buy chemicals that can be to treat the water, such as the scale of the damaging effect of illegal mining in Ghana today. And so the failure of the Akufo-Addo government to tackle head-on Ghana is, for me, a massive legacy that he has not done, that has put a real negative on his tenure in office. Because today, even as I'm speaking to you right now, today in Ghana, because of the effect of the pollutants of the small-scale miners, babies have been born today, particularly in the mining areas. Babies have been born with no hands, with no eyes, with no lips, with no anus, with no legs, because of the effects of these toxic chemicals, particularly in the water body. So these people in the mining community are drinking poison water, are bathing in poison water. And so these chemicals are in their skin. And the skin is your biggest vessel. So when you're drinking dirty water, poison water, when you're bathing with dirty water, poison water, that is going to go into your bloodstream. And again, that causes, kidney damage, liver damage, all sorts of other damage, and particularly to the woman's reproductive system. And this is why the babies are coming out deformed. And yet the government don't care, because it doesn't affect them and their families. And also, while we're at this as well, the Chinese are now, as well as these Ghanaian politicians and their cronies, the Chinese are now massive players in this illegal small-scale mining. The famous case of a Chinese national called Aisha Huan, who came into Ghana and made her fortune because of small-scale mining. And she was protected. Her case was never brought to book because she was able to entrap with her private operations senior police, senior army, and senior politicians. And as such, this woman, Aisha Wang, escaped justice for helping to pollute Ghana's waters. And so this illegal small-scale mining is a national emergency that Nana Akufo-Addo has failed to address. We hope that the incoming government will address this head-on because, like I said, half of Ghana's water bodies are poisoned and are polluted. And even the food that has been grown in some of these areas is dangerous. I wouldn't eat it. It's dangerous food. Some of the yam, the vegetables, the fruits coming out of these areas, particularly some of these mining communities, is poison. So this guy, I'm saying, is a very, very serious issue. It's not just a health issue, right? It is a national security issue, right? Because the very existence of Ghana is at stake. Because when you've got no water, when your land is polluted, that you can't even grow a mango on it, that's when probably the Ghanaians are going to wake up and think that they've done something wrong. The government and the citizens, because this illegal small-scale mining has massive consequences consequences that I don't think many Ghanaians are up to, because if they were, there'll be a national outcry as to why this government of Nana Akufo-Addo failed to deliver on its promise to end small-scale illegal mining. Now we move on to the domestic and external debt recovery program. Now this is, again, a failure of the Akufo-Addo government to actually sort out the economy, because under previous governments, there was no domestic debt exchange program whereby that would hit people's pensions, whereby that would hit people's savings, whereby that would hit people's, government bonds that they bought from the government, in order that will yield, a grand investment for them in their retirement, and also to pay things like school fees and medical care. And so many Ghanaians do not really, because they've not been told by the media, and this announcement that I'm giving you, you will not hear it anywhere on any Ghanaian media. Because here on Ghana in Focus, we tell it like it is. We don't sugarcoat things. Unlike other podcasters, other YouTubers, we tell it like it is. We talk truth to power. Many Ghanaians, because of the way the media has not really informed them about this, don't really understand the severity of the debt exchange program that Ghana, under this government of Akufo-Addo, has put Ghana into. So because of $3 billion, not overstanding, listeners, that last year alone, Ghana made more than $11 billion from gold mining. Ask yourself, where the money go? Where the money go? Where is the money? Where is our share of that $11 billion of gold that was mined in Ghana last year? Gold is at record highs, $2,300 plus an ounce. Last year, Ghana mined 4.5 million ounces of gold, times by $2,350 an ounce. You do the math. You do the math. We don't get anything for our gold because we've allowed these foreign mining companies to basically loot our gold and take the profits out of the country, carte blanche. Ghana only gets a measly 2% of gold royalties. And we use all that money away, and then we go and borrow $3 billion from the IMF. And the condition of that was for government to enter a debt restructuring program whereby Ghana would have to restructure its debt, because Ghana owes billions, right? The internal debt of Ghana is $60 billion US. The external debt of Ghana is $6 billion, half of which is China. And I'll come to external debt in a minute. So because of this bad economic management of the economy of Ghana by this Nana Akufo-Addo government, Ghana went to the IMF last year to get a bailout. And condition of this was debt restructuring. Now, what debt restructuring means, right, in lay terms, is that rather than the government cut its expenditure, yeah. So, for example, not the school feeding program, the free so-called SHS, where Ghana is pumping billions of Ghanaian cedis into something that, for me, needs to be reviewed. And even the IMF have told Ghana to review it. But that's for another subject. Ghana is pumping all this money, right, into this so-called free HSS, and yet it is not wanting to cut down expenditure. So rather than the government cut down expenditure, what it is doing, it is raping, stealing people's pensions to pay back the money that they've borrowed. Also, the government bonds. So under the government of Ghana bond, you could get a yield of between 20 and 25%. But now, under this domestic exchange program that the government has bought into, if you are a government bond holder, you are now not going to get between 20 and 50% like you should have got before this crisis. You're now going to get between 1 and 8%. And that's going to last between now and 2037. So in essence, right, basically the government is stealing your money. That's what it is. The government is stealing the money of the ordinary Ghanaians who have bought government bonds in order to pay back the debt that they themselves created. And yet the government, is singing and dancing about it as if it's some great achievement. They're okay because they're still chopping. But this will have a profound effect on those Ghanaians, even the upper middle class Ghanaians who got government bonds. That'll have a profound effect on them because their income is going to be chopped by at least a third. Cut by a third. So the income that they should be getting from their government bonds, the government is taking that income that they're getting. Also, people's pensions have been raided as a consequence of this domestic debt exchange program that the government has entered into. So people who have been worked in Ghana for 25, 20, 30, some cases 35 years, thinking that they're going to get a nice pension to retire on, you better think again. You must think again because under this domestic debt exchange program, the government of Ghana is going to raise your pension. And some of that pension money is going to be used to pay off the debt that Ghana owes its creditors. And so this domestic debt exchange program is going to have a profound effect for the next 10 years on Ghanaians. Ghanaians have not been told this because the media is so partisan in Ghana. And also the media does not really do a critical analysis apart from one or two media houses. Even some of the journalists have been bought and paid for by the current government. But that's for another story. And so many Ghanaians do not really understand the severity of the debt restructuring program. And even on the external debt, that's going to affect Ghana as well. And the citizen industry. Because Ghana owes, like I said, China, $3 billion, also owes, countries like US, UK, France, Germany, European Union, etc. Again, under this debt program, the older Ghanaian is going to have to pay in high taxes. I told you sometime this year I did the program, talking about the cost of living crisis. 25 taxes, have been put on by this government in the last 2 years alone. This is why the cost of living crisis in Ghana is so deeply having a deep bite against Ghanaians. Could you believe it? 25 different taxes. The E-levy, the COVID levy, even though COVID has gone, we're still paying the COVID levy. Heritage levy. There's something about emissions levy because of so-called global emissions. All these taxes, as part of this debt restructuring program, is going to cripple Ghanaians. And yet Ghanaians are not up in arms like they're in Kenya about tax rises and tax hikes. Yeah? So the Ghanaians are going to be taxed even more to pay off the external debt that this government has created because of its mismanagement and wanton borrowing that they have done over the last 7 to 8 years. And this, for me, is a big flaw in the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo because he promised to, wake up Ghana's economy from the mess he inherited from the NDC. But yet, the economy of Ghana, like I said, is in the worse shape now than what he inherited in 2017. And so this domestic exchange program is going to kill Ghanaians, literally, and they will suffer for it for years to come. And so the last thing which has been negative under Nana Akufo-Addo is the power outages called Dumso in the Akan language. So since December last year, it's got a bit better recently, but it's still power outages in the country. But since December last year, there's been, really, really incessant power outages in the country, whereby in some cases, people within Accra, Kumasi, Tema, Takrady, Sonyai, Techiman, Tamale, etc. They've experienced power outages for up to 12 hours. No light. Yeah? And this is because of many things, but I'll give you just 3 examples. So one, the government under Akufo-Addo has not invested in new technology when it comes to electricity. So a lot of the equipment that Ghana has today, in terms of its distribution of electricity, is old equipment that was built in the 60s and 70s. Hasn't been upgraded. Yeah. And this explains why, in part, Ghana is experiencing power outages because of the lack of failure to invest in new infrastructure for the 21st century that could help, elicit power distribution and power generation. Second reason why there's power issues in Ghana is that Ghana has not paid its debt, particularly under this government. So the ECG, which is the electricity company of Ghana, is owed more than $500 million US dollars. Because believe it or not, electricity is bought in US dollars per kilowatt hour or per kilowatt hour. And so, many government organizations, even the Office of the Presidency, have not paid its electricity bill to the ECG. So ECG is owed billions, right, by government and also by a lot of these crooked businesses who are tax evading as well as ordinary Ghanaian residents, some of whom are not paying their light bills. And so because of this, the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, is owed billions. And because of this, huge debt, that ECG owes is not able to pay its way, particularly to the West African gas pipeline, which is another part of the power equation. The West African gas pipeline is a pipeline that runs through Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Ghana, and I think La Côte d'Ivoire, supplies electricity. And so, Ghana owes the West African gas pipeline more than $300 million. And because of this, the Nigerians said that if you don't pay us, we're going to switch off your gas supply. This is another reason why there's power outages in Ghana, because the government has not paid what it owes the Nigerian government for usage of the gas. And so Dumso has been a big issue in Ghana since December last year, and that has had an impact not just on ordinary Ghanaians, but even on businesses. A lot of businesses are falling up because of this power crisis, where there's no electricity for up to 12 hours. They've had to go and buy a generator, and added to that, they've had to buy kerosene in order to fuel the generator, which has cost them a lot of money. And as you know, in the last few months, a lot of big companies, because of this doomsday and economic crisis, have left Ghana. Companies like BIC, Dark and Lovely, Societe Generale Ghana, many big companies have left Ghana. And so this doomsday power outage crisis has been a crisis that, again, the government took its eye off the ball. Had the government kept its eye on the ball, there'd be no doomsday, and Ghanaians would not have had to go through, 12 hours a day without electricity. Yeah. In recent months, I think the last 2 months, it's come back. The power situation has eased a bit, but it's still not as it was before December last year. So there's still some power outages, but not as bad as it has been for the majority of this year. And so again, this is a very, very bad legacy of the current government, which, by the way, when Mahama and NDC had their power crisis for 4 years, between 2013 and 2017, this same government was ridiculing Mahama, and that they were going to make Dumso a thing of the past. But yet, because of the things that I've just said, Dumso has come back to haunt them. Yeah. And so, those are we talked about housing, healthcare, illegal small-scale mining, galamsey, the debt exchange program, and also power outages that has put a damper on the tenure of Nana Akufo-Addo's presidency. However, for me, the best thing that he did in the 8 years that he was as president was the year of return. Yeah, 2019, where he did the year of return, where he openly invited, whether he bought into it or not, that's neither here nor there. But the actual fact of the matter is, under this government, yeah, the right of return, year of return, where he led a campaign, he went to America in particular. He also went to parts of the Caribbean like Jamaica and Trinidad to call on our sisters and brothers to come to Ghana. Ghana is your home. View Ghana as your home and come to Ghana and do business and set up, life for yourself. Yeah. For me, that's the best thing that, that Akufo-Addo has done in his 8 years, because it has attracted tens of thousands of our brothers and sisters from the West, i.e. the Caribbean, from America, particularly Canada and the US, and then from Europe, namely UK, Germany, Holland, to come back to Ghana and see Ghana as their home, see Ghana as an investment opportunity, and see Ghana as a place where one can do business. So for me, that has been a big, big plus in the, tenure of Nana Akufo-Addo. This year of return, whereby our people were invited to come to Ghana to live, work, and do business. And many of whom have been able to get citizenship in Ghana, and I know now bona fide citizens. For me, that's been a great thing of this presidency. However, all the things that I mentioned in part 1 and now part 2, analyzing, doing the critical analysis that you're not going to hear anywhere on any Ghanaian media, be it on YouTube, be it on podcast, be it whatever. This critical analysis that we've done over the past 2 weeks, analyzing, making a critical eye, a critical third eye on the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo, is that he has been the worst president, definitely in the Fourth Republic. He's not better than Rawlings, before Atimos, and even the worst of Mahama. No, he has been the worst president by far of the Fourth Republic. The economic indices, bear out for himself. The highest interest rates in Africa under this government. The highest inflation in Africa under this government. The domestic debt ratio of more than 100% at its peak, right? From this government. The billions that it has squandered. This government, yeah? This government alone borrowed more than $11 billion on the Eurobond market. And because of this mismanagement, Ghana is now barred from the Eurobond market under this president. Yeah? You look at the tier rating system of healthcare under this president in Ghana. You look at the cost of living crisis that has crippled even the upper class in Ghana under this government. You look at the domestic debt exchange program, that one in particular, the domestic debt exchange program, whereby everyone in Ghana is affected by it, whether you're upper class, middle class, low class. Everyone is going to be affected by this domestic debt exchange program under this government. And so when we do a critical eye, a critical analysis, the only conclusion to draw is that this has been the worst president in Ghana's history. From Nkrumah to now, Nana Akufo-Addo has been the worst president in Ghana's history. We look at all the stats that I've just given you out, bear for itself. Ghana is going through severe economic crisis, not seen for at least 45 years under this government. And so, you alone, you listeners, you can do your own analysis. But the analysis that we've joined up with via our research department, via what's gone on over the last 8 years, particularly the last 2 years, particularly as a result of the cost of living crisis, and as well as the domestic debt exchange program, the conclusion that we've drawn is that the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo government is a very, very bad one, and that he's the worst president in Ghana's history. And we hope and pray that come December 7th, when Ghana goes to the polls, Ghana is able to think about what's happened to themselves and to their standard of living in the last 8 years, and vote for a better and brighter future for themselves, their children, and their grandchildren, because they owe it to themselves and their children to have a better life than what they have now. And so I thank you very much for listening to this special edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, looking at the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo, part 2, as he prepares to leave office. Thank you very much for listening to this show. If you like what you hear, please share to your friends, family, and social media networks. So until next week, we have some more Ghana in Focus for you. It's thank you for myself, and from myself and all the crew here at Ghana in Focus. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week for some more Ghana in Focus.